Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. So, not quite out of nowhere, but seemingly out of nowhere, we got an Ashen Iron trailer. This is being marketed as a free seasonal update that's somewhat similar to the well-praised and much-loved Into the Light update from back before the final shape. It's also the first of these seasonal updates that is being added in this new era of the game, so there's a lot of pressure for it to perform. This is of course especially the case thanks to Destiny, lore and story aside, being in a bit of a rough spot at the moment, with Edge of Fate having not hit the marks that the community wanted it to. That being said, there are some cool things that have been shown off, and they have some really interesting narrative potential as well. So we're going to talk about them. Before we get into the trailer at large though, I think it is worth touching on two topics. Firstly, it's worth noting that the narrative component of Ashen Iron is currently a relative unknown. It's entirely possible that all we get is the extra lore tabs from new gear and dialogue from new activities. As we'll talk about in a second, there is a new exotic mission, but as far as anything approaching a main story quest is concerned, we've heard nothing. With that in mind, I want to look back to Into the Light and think about what happened there, and thinking on that, I'm going to go ahead and set this expectation. Do not expect a main story quest. We did not get one with Into the Light, not really. We got the weapon quests and we got a few bits and pieces here and there about various parts to the game. There was no major quest line that threaded all the content together. There was nothing that tied Pantheon in with everything else. There was nothing that tied Onslaught in. The set dressing, the environment, the dialogue that was going on at the time being, the context of the world and what was happening around you, that was your narrative. So, realistically speaking, don't expect one here within Ash and Iron. It's also, I think, fair to say that it's not necessarily what the community wants. Into the Light was well loved and remembered because of things like Pantheon and the addition of Onslaught, but in no instance was there ever some brand spanking new story that came along with this, and this was part of a prelude to the final shape, the conclusion of a 10-year-long saga-defining story. So, yeah, we got nothing, and I don't think we should expect anything. It's entirely possible that major story beats aren't the goal of updates like this. So again, setting those expectations right now, do not expect any major story that goes beyond the exotic mission. The second big point is one that I said a few months ago, but I want to repeat it again for emphasis and just to drive the point home. Despite the return of the Plague Lands, I still think we should not expect the return of the final Destiny 1 raid, Wrath of the Machine. I know it's sad. I'm especially sad because it's one of my favorite raids, so I'm hurting with you guys. Narratively speaking, there doesn't need to be a tie-in for these things to happen. You don't need to expect wild changes to the story for Wrath to be returned, because narratively speaking, raids, strikes, and other activities of that nature are moments in time that we can replay. It's not as though we're going to see Sievers, raid, splicers returning almost a decade later for narrative reasons that have been cooked up out of nowhere. I'm telling you this again because I think we should set those expectations from the beginning. There are a few people out there who were expecting this, despite the fact that Bungie would have been shouting about it from the hilltops if this was a thing. But no, it is not a thing. Do not set that false expectation for yourself. Sure, if it does exist, then I will be the happiest and wrongest Guardian in the tower. All I'm saying is, don't get mad if it's not there. For one thing, I think it would be fair to say that it's not happening partly because we also have the Epic raid that is releasing soon. The raid and dungeon team has doubtless spent more of their time focusing on that release than on building something new that they've just not talked about. Furthermore, Wrath of the Machine demands the addition of a functionally new enemy faction being added back into the game, the Siva Splicers of the House of Devils. And yes, I know they're fallen, yes, get out of here bozo, no one wants your bad faith takes. As anyone who's played Destiny 1 will be able to tell you, yes, they are fallen, but functionally they are different enemies. They have different weapons, weaknesses, and in some instances you might sit there and be tempted to say that it's just copy-pasted and given a red and black coat of paint, but again, if you ever played D1 back in the day, you know that's not really true. It is a significantly bigger deal to ask for the fallen splicers back in this day and age. It's also worth noting that's doubly the case because the resources of the studio are now significantly different from what they used to be since the July layoffs last year. In game dev terms, it's important to understand that there is some pretty significant time lag between working on a thing and that thing actually releasing. So whilst lots of the episodes probably had the work and attention of the larger Bungie team, the content offerings from Edge of Fate onwards are likely to be a lot smaller in scale. As an example, before they were able to manage adding in the Dread from the final shape. And making the point about time lag again, I imagine the Dire taken in Heresy were already, relatively speaking, complete, or at very least close to done, by the time that the layoffs happened. So yeah, I don't think that they would have had enough team members and enough time in order to work on this. Just keep that in mind, the real-world circumstances within the studio have changed, substantially so. Now, does that mean that all our hopes for Wrath of the Machine should be squashed? No, not necessarily. And I want to make it really clear, I'm not sitting there and saying that we're going to get it this update. I think it just means that, in the future, it's more likely. Having the palette and textures of critical areas of the Plaguelands will certainly go a long way towards helping us get there. Siva might have faded and is dormant right now, but the very existence of this same area makes a slightly easier jumping off point towards building out that future expansion. I would simply expect it at a much later date. Potentially ahead of another expansion, maybe in another free update, who knows. So, with that pair of points out of the way, let's start talking about this trailer, which is where we see that the Plaguelands has returned to us in most of its festering glory, with a bit of an asterisk there. I know there are some people weirded out by the supposed lack of Siva in the trailer. For those that don't know, Siva was a nanite technology that appeared as large red wires, red floating nanite particles, and carbon fiber looking nanite nodes. It grew almost like the cordyceps fungus from The Last of Us, infesting the surrounding environment and those who were interacting with it to an extent. Siva is still here in the trailer, it's just no longer active. Siva has been in a dormant state like this for years, having lost the major commanding presence that used to control it, aka Rasputin. Not only is the Tyrant gone, but we also killed Axis, the Archon Prime, and destroyed the Siva replicator back in Rise of Iron. So Siva is here, but it's not active in the same way, hence why you're not seeing massive clouds of nanites. However, this is where the narrative might come into play and we might see something interesting happening. You see, Siva needs a commanding will to actually do anything, and also to become an active threat to us. Maya Sundaresh's forces are shown off in the Plaguelands, which is of critical importance to this, because the Conductor has a little something called the Echo of Command. Yeah, I really do think this is a play in which they could make. The presence of her forces might imply that she is attempting to use whatever she finds in the Plaguelands for her own ends, and this might include and extend to Siva. I think she clearly must have some uses for Warmind tech as well, and all of that might tie into the exotic mission as much as it ties into anything else. If Maya could control Siva with the Echo of Command, then she would have a potentially potent weapon to use against us. Even if it doesn't replicate or eclipse the powers of her Echo, Maya can't be everywhere at once. With Siva, she would be able to spread her forces a little bit more thinly on the ground, and yet cause even more havoc. But why would Maya want Warmind tech in the first place if she's got fully integrated Vex? Simply put, in some instances, Warmind tech actually bests Vex tech. We have evidence of that in the lore, thanks to Rasputin being able to rescue the 227 Ishtar copies from the Vex unit that created them back on Venus. Specimen 12. If a Warmind is able to defeat a Vex in this manner, it means their technology is significantly more advanced in some way, and the Warmind itself or any technology attached to it is worth gathering for this reason. There have also been rumblings in the lore about how Maya's hold on the Choral Vex is starting to dwindle somewhat. A force like Siva at her command, enacting her will, would be another powerful tool that she would be able to make use of in case the Vex suddenly went rogue. And if you needed more proof of this, take a look at the trailer, and you can see a shot here where something has been enclosed in a Vex dome and a Cabal dome shield. Look a little bit closer and yep, that is distinctly Warmind tech. So we know they're trying to interact with it somehow. This is all very speculative, of course. Maya could be searching for other things in the Plaguelands for other reasons. However, it's hard to think of anything else in the Plaguelands that would have the same kind of value as Warmind tech and remaining Siva. Even if it is something different, it'd be shocking to me personally if we didn't see something about Siva generally. The Conductor's forces here are also something of note. She was starting to make use of limited numbers of compelled Cabal back near the end of episode Echoes. Now it seems like we'll be seeing a much larger scale development and deployment of those forces to do her bidding. You can tell this thanks to the ring that is around all of their necks. This identifies them as part of Maya's Choral faction. There's also a new exotic weapon I wanted to take a brief look at here. It looks like a Strand pulse rifle. No, it's not Mint retrograde, but it's got something interesting about it. Sure, the alternate reload seems to detonate stuck targets, and that is cool, but I wanted to focus on the symbol on the side of it. At first I looked at this and I thought this could be the symbol of Elsie Bray. However, that might not be the case on further inspection. I figured this was worth mentioning just in case, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this more generally. Do you reckon this is something new that we haven't seen before? Leave your thoughts down below in the comments. The exotic mission itself is the other big thing worth noting. It's called Warsat Heist, and it appears to take place in an old Seraph bunker complex, except the entrance appears to be overwhelmed with Siva. It's very prominently lit as well. Whilst the Siva outside still looks dormant, it's possible that the Siva within might be active, although there's very few other moments where it seems to show that. So hold your judgment, hold your horses, we're not entirely sure at this moment. As we go through the facility, it also appears that we are either going to end the mission or perhaps progress it to the point where we reach these massive bunker structures in an enormous subterranean area. This place is so large that it actually reminds me of the Perfection Complex from Wrath of the Machine, albeit significantly less dark and foreboding. It also looks like we'll be joined by some forces from Keitel's Ascendancy, namely her Scions. We see them in the trailer, and it even looks like they use their powers to shield us from the powerful attacks of the Warsats while we're in the mission area. Their presence here is also a probable sign of Lord Saladin's involvement. After all, with him being a Valis on Keitel's War Council now, he probably has command over some of the Ascendancy's forces. He is of course also still an Iron Lord. With that in mind, he would doubtless have a vested interest in protecting the Plaguelands, Felwinter Peak, and the resting place of his friends from any would-be invaders. He also knows the dangers of Siva and of Rasputin's leftover Warmind tech, and will want to prevent it from falling into anyone else's hands. We also see a remarkable part of Saladin's legacy made manifest once more, a new iteration of the Iron Battle Axe. Now, whether this is a relic like it was back in Rise of Iron, or whether it's a fully fledged exotic weapon remains to be seen. Obviously, the hope is for the latter, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it'll get shown off in the reveal stream. We'll figure that one out. You can check that out on my YouTube and Twitch, by the way. Just keep in mind we make sure that the chat stays respectful and doesn't go completely down the road of toxicity. With this new iteration of the Iron Battle Axe, it looks as though it's borrowing influences from Keitel's Ascendancy, the technology of the Cabal, and of course the Iron Lords that originally forged it. I do also see what looks like nanite particles floating around the weapon, so it's possible that it's got active Siva at its core, which would be another cool addition. The design also has some elements that almost look like they're Neomuni in nature. In particular, the 6 taller hexagons seem to remind me of the Neomuni tech, and this might make a little bit of extra sense. After all, at the beginning of their city's history, they had large stockpiles of Siva that they brought with them to initially build the city, and after that was all said and done, they iterated on the technology to create their own far more advanced nanites. So maybe this new Iron Battle Axe is a product of this age, where humanity at large and its allies are able to uphold the same principles of the Iron Lords, whilst iterating on their established ways of war. We do of course see more than just this in the trailer. We see new iterations of Drang, including one which is kind of like a rocket-assisted frame if I'm not mistaking it, a Mida Mini Tool version that's been brought forward, a new set of weapons that seem like they share the aesthetic of that new Warmind bunker from the exotic mission, and of course the opportunity to use a brig against our enemies in the Plaguelands. The one thing that I would say is conspicuously absent from the trailer is the Fallen in the Plaguelands. Now again, I don't think we're going to be seeing the Splicer Fallen, and they might not have a narrative justification for being here anyway, but I would still love to see what's become of the Fallen here, even if it's just explained narratively, and not expanded on much with any enemy encounters. This place had a little religious significance to the Fallen as well, as it was a site where some of them claimed that they had achieved apotheosis, aka they had become gods. This is what in old terms it was for the Eliksni. They would ascend into mechanical beings like Axis did and would eventually access godhood. Not hearing anything from the Eliksni, even if it's just one of those strange side throwaway lines where you get a little bit of context from Ido or Mithrax or Variks, would be a little bit weird to say the least. As for the rest of it, well, we'll see in the reveal stream. Catch me on YouTube and Twitch when the reveal is live. We'll see more info regarding Ascent Iron and Renegades on September 9th. In the meantime though, that's all from me for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go ahead and leave a like and leave your thoughts down below in the comments. Remember that if you want more content from universes near and far, you can hit the subscribe button and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership as always has been quite enough for me, and that in the meantime my name is Byf. Rhodacia ad Astra. I'll see you Starside.